Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. You asked for it and it's finally happening. This is a comparison between the Profiler 195 small block Chevy head versus the AFR 195 head. This is their full CNC head, but it is the street port version. They have a race port version, and that's not what I'm going to compare with them. The reason why is because the retail on this head for me, the AFR one assembled, is $1,850. The retail on the Profiler is $1,250. So there's still a $600 difference. The race port version of this is better. I floated it before, it is better. However, it's considerably more expensive than even this one. So it's almost, I think it's about $1,000 more than that head. So it's not a fair comparison to me. This is still $600 difference, quite a bit. So really the question is the $600 worth it? Well, I'll go through all the stuff and I will give you flow numbers at the end. So I'm not just gonna talk to you like some of the other people in the YouTube videos and never tell you anything or show you real stuff. I'm gonna flow it. I'm even gonna try to record the sound of the port while it's being flowed so you can hear that, so you can hear some of the differences. I'm gonna go through these heads as much as I can. If the video is long, I extremely apologize. You can just fast forward to the end, and that should be where I talk about the flow numbers. But anyway, here we go. Now, AFR, I keep having some person that posts in the comments, which I respect your opinion. I don't know that you're true or not, but AFR does make an import head called the Enforcer line. This is not it. This is the AFR 195 street head. AFR, my rep there told me that these heads are cast in America by Elderbrock, and then they CNC port them. I don't know if he wanted me to tell you, but you can find it on the internet, so I don't think it's a big secret. I will say that this casting, however, that I just got in today, looks different from the other ones I've seen before in the past. For one, it's smoother, and two, the AFR logo, which on the camera doesn't look like it, but usually it's bigger. Maybe it's just me and it's been a while, but usually it's bigger. So I don't know if they had a revision on the casting itself, but it looks a little different than what it has been before. However, AFR assures me that this head was cast in America, and I know they machine them in America, so this is an American head. Profiler, they're also an American head. So both these are American, good quality, American made, support America heads. They're cast in, I think, Ohio, and they do their machine work there. So they actually cast their own heads, so it's cool. But anyway, this is the AFR street head. Let's go through some of the specs on it. It has a 205 intake valve and a 1/600 exhaust valve. AFR uses these, this is their valve. These are these smaller stem valves compared to the Profiler. These measure 8mm on the stem, and these are 11/32. So because of that, the AFR valves typically weigh less. It's just less stem, less material, less weight. Another thing is they use, which is the camera probably won't zoom in, but there we go. They use a bead groove compared to like what Profilers typically use if you got them assembled. I got them bare. Typically, every one I've ever seen has a square groove. So in other words, it takes a different lock on this valve than this one. I don't know that you'll ever be a problem unless you ever take them apart. Just know that most valves use these locks. AFRs use their own different one. So anyway, that's this. So 205 intake valve, 1/600 exhaust valve. Now I did some measurements, and I will show you as much as I can. This is one of the first measurements I took with the head. Getting my pointer here, sorry. This is the push rod pinch. That's what we measure. So it goes from here because the push rod actually goes through here if you know anything about small block Chevys. The area from here across, and that same area up and down. This is the cross-sectional area, it's a pinch. This should be the smallest part of the actual head. And the AFR I measured 1.094 wide times 1.964 high. Gives me a CSA, minimum CSA for this head's 2.14. So, because you could have two heads, which you're about to see, that have the same CC, but have a different minimum CSA. In other words, the port could be bigger further on or in different spots. So this is really the better one to look at, because for the most part, this port is the same length as a Profiler. So there's that. Okay, let's look at this view now. Okay, this is some differences I'll go ahead and point out. So this is what it looks like. The street version is different from the race version. I'm going to try to capture it. This right here is called the vane. Now, if you notice, this one's straight. If you look at any of the other AFR eliminator heads, usually the vane's actually facing this direction. So it's actually looking like that. So not like this. This is only on the street head. If I got the race head, it would be facing here and it'd be longer. Just something to point out. Also, the race head has a 208 valve instead of 205. This one's 205. The CNC work, as usual, it's nice. Good job. But because of the street port, the step over there's more distance between each time I take a step, so it's faster to cut. So the CNC lines aren't as smooth as what you would see on the race port. Anyway, that's it. But I'm gonna go through some of the measurements too real quick. 205 valve, I measured the throat. That's from here across. Measured 1.846, that's 90% throat, which is really good. That's normal for what you would see, and that's a very safe one. Usually you can go higher percentages as long as the port's balanced, it works well. The next one's the bowl. This is just showing you kind of differences in size, where the sizes between the two heads. I measured 1.969, which is, by the way, the bowl goes from the guide across each direction. That's 96% of what the valve is. Just a thought. So there's that. Okay, now I'm gonna flip it over. Oh, one more thing. This one's angle plug. I have a set of straight plugs on order, but they're just not here, so I can't compare it. The Profiler is a straight plug. It'd be nice if I could do straight plug versus straight plug. I just don't have one here. So I'm just gonna compare it to this. There shouldn't be any much of a difference. All it does is just barely move it straight. Just something I wanna point out. Let's look at the exhaust side. This is the exhaust side. Now, the exhaust ports are raised up about 100 thousandths, but I'll go ahead and tell you the Profilers are higher up. They flat out look like the raised exhaust port's higher. This is more of a square or a rounded rectangular port, so it'll probably work with most headers. Anyway, that's that. And you can kind of tell the angle plug, give you some ideas on some of the stuff. The head itself looks like a strong one. Look how thick the deck is. I mean, they're pretty thick. AFR does have a lifetime warranty on their castings. So that's, which I don't know any other company that does that. But anyway, some more views for you. Okay. All right, and now let's look at the Profiler. All right, this is the Profiler. Now I'm gonna go through a couple of things that I like about it versus each head as I'm talking about this one. Please don't feel like I'm bashing one product. I'm just giving you information. If it sounds negative, then that's how I think this part is. It doesn't mean you should just take everything I say with it as gospel. Just take this as information that you just heard, and you choose to do with what you want with it. I try to give numbers so that you can have some facts to back it up, but this is what it is. It's just my opinion. Please don't take it as I'm the guru, I'm the best. There's other people who have different opinions about everything. So maybe this is just one more that might help you with your decisions. But anyway, let's go through some of it. First off, what I do really like about the Profiler is, you see this, it's one continuous chunk of aluminum. So if you were to run shaft rockers, which I know you probably won't for this size head, it's a stout. That's a nice piece. The other thing I like is, you see this, and Profiler didn't do this at first. When they first started making this head, they did not have this. This is an oil drain back. This whole groove that's cut out here. So as the oil has an easier path to drain out. Now AFR doesn't have that. Not to say that they have an issue, it just moves down, but it does have to come around that lump and then it goes down. But please don't think I'm saying that it has an issue, because they really don't. It's just like a nice feature to add, but it's not like it's a game changer or a killer deal. The other thing is, Profilers have a wider spring pocket. So this pocket's only gonna measure like 155 on the, actually I think this one's even smaller at 146. I think you can have a machine for 155 from the factory. I just never ordered it that way. So, however, the Profiler, I think this is like 1625, which you should never run a spring that big. They make really stout springs at a 150 diameter. But anyway, most people run like a 155 spring. This one's like a 146 because it's for a hydraulic roller setup. Both of them will be, but I ordered this one bare. I got a symbol. Anyway, that's that. Now, the valve sizes on the Profiler, the intake's a 202 and the exhaust is 1600. So it's smaller, and it's a smaller intake valve. Same size exhaust valve, but it does have a smaller intake valve than the AFR. Now let's look at some of our measurements. Back to me being critical. This is an as cast head. So because of that, you can kind of tell the opening isn't as smooth as what it could be, because it's cast this way and there's going to be some shifts and it's going to be a little off. Now other companies like say Brodix, and I think Dart does it now too, they're still as cast head, but they will CNC gasket match probably like an inch in. It really doesn't help flow, but it sure makes the appearance better. So please don't think bad about these. It may not look as bad as it looks worse than probably what it actually, the flow wise goes as far as the openings, but it's an ass cast head. It's cheaper because of that. But let's look at the measurements. This is the pinch, just like the AFR, from here to here and up and down. It's 1.106 wide, 2.054 high. CSA is 2.27 the way I measured. So if we look at that compared to the AFR, which I've already put upside down, the AFR was 2.14. So instantly this one has a bigger pinch, which typically for total power production, especially in the higher RPMs, the bigger pinch helps. Something to keep in mind, or a bigger engine. So just something to help you out with there. But anyway, let's roll over and look at the bowl. This is the chambers and everything with it. Now, they are not CNC bowl blended, obviously. This is how they come from the factory. And I'm gonna try to roll them out so you can get better lighters. No, it doesn't, okay. This is how they come from the factory. They're bowl blended like this. These are done by hand, clearly. Someone's doing them in their factory. It looks a little rough, but it's not a CNC machine. So overall, I mean, pretty nice. And by the way, you probably could clean this up and you probably won't gain but like maybe 1 or 2 CFMs. So as bad as it might think it looks, the flow numbers really don't change that much. So, but it is done by hand. Sometimes they can be better and then sometimes they can be worse, and that does affect flow a little from head to head as compared to the AFR, where it's gonna be the same pretty much from head to head. All right, look at the measurements. 202 valve, my throat measured 1.834. That's from here to here. That's 90.7%. So percent-wise, it's a bigger throat than the AFR, but overall not. Bowl, which goes straight across here, it's 94.7. So by percent, it's smaller than the AFR. So if I'm just looking at stuff, there's more area here in the AFR than there is here. So this has more area here, not as much area here. So just something to think about. Anyway, that's that. Let's look at the exhaust port real quick. This is the exhaust port. Now, you've got them, I mean, you could kind of tell here. I'm going to do this real quick. This is the bottom of my table. Let me scoot up. I'm just going to ballpark it here. Yeah. This exhaust port on the AFR 195 is definitely taller up than the, oh, let me get a side view. It's definitely more raised than the AFR. This is a D-port design. In case you're wondering what gasket to use on this, it's a 1406 by Felpro. Works great. Anyway, D-port exhaust, typically they flow really good, but sometimes you might have a hard time finding headers that fit them, because not all headers have D-ports. Just something to keep in mind. Since I talked about the decks are not as thick on the AFRs, I mean on the profilers. They're still pretty thick, but the AFRs are definitely thicker. For the record, I've never had a problem with people having issues with the profiler sealing as far as on the deck, even with boost and nitrous. So that's never been an issue. So even though AFR has a thicker deck, I haven't ever had people have problems with that unless their tune gets really out of whack. It's usually never because the decks are too thin. So something else. Anyway, from this point, I'm going to put them on the flow bench and we'll see which one is better. And then I do want to talk about one other thing about the profiler, but I want to save it till the very end because I want you to get the best of it before I talk about what I don't like about it. Okay, sorry to do this to you, but before I flow the heads, something was bugging me about the AFR head. Like I said, this one came in, I'm not for sure about the casting. They assured me that they're still made by Edelbrock, but it looks so different. I was like, maybe it's just my recollection. Well, I have this head here. This is an AFR 245. This is one I started porting and then I ended up hitting water, but that's the side point. I ported one since then. But the reason why I bring this up is because it looks like the casting's changed. So now I don't know what's going on. For sure the casting's different. And here, let me just go through some of the differences. You can see them clear as day. This is the old ones. They look like Edelbrock cast them. You see I got this pad here, and you got a number here, and you got a number here, and you got a pad here. New one. No pad. No pad. And I swear you always saw them because This is like a thing that Edelbrock does or with their stampings, and you can always tell. Not there at all. The only mark they have is the W, or it's upside down M. But also look, this is how thick the deck is, and that's that, okay? This is this. Notice how there's a recess around the bolt hole? No, and not that it's just, this, maybe they've redesigned it to make it stronger, even more strong, which looks like you've got better support, but there's no doubt it's different. Look at the AFR. See how big that is? See if I zoom out? That's what I mean. It's definitely different. Look at the biggest thing, and this is what bothered me about it, is look at that finish, and look at this finish. Now I know you're thinking, well, that looks so much smooth. Let me do this. I'm gonna pull up a different head real quick and show you what I mean, why it bothers me. Sorry for the mess and the view of the floor. I've only got one hand. This is the KMJ head. By the way, I finished porting this for the video that's later on. I'm only showing you, look at the aluminum. This surface finish is pretty close to that surface finish. Now, AFR sells an enforcer head, which is this head. This is for sure a Chinese head. But AFR sells the enforcer head that's just like this. Just like this. See what I mean? This one's maybe a little bit rougher. And there's definitely not as much material here because they cut that off. If someone's from AFR is watching this, I'm not knocking your product, and if you say it's made in America, I'll believe you. But I would like for you to tell me if you changed the castings or why you did change from the one that was before, if you could. Anyway, sorry for the sidebar on the video. I'll flow the heads and we'll compare them. By the way, I still don't think this is a bad head in a lifetime warranty on their castings. At least they used to. I never tested the theory. But anyway, let's get on the flow bench. This is how my wife cuts onions. Okay, guys, the head's set up on the bench and it's ready to flow. When I do it, I'm gonna try to flow it in two different, I'm gonna do through the whole flow test, but at the end, this is a pitot tube. And what it does is it measures velocity in the port. And so what I'm gonna do initially, when I get to, I think it's 1 inch valve lift, I'm gonna put it here and I'm gonna measure the velocity at the push rod pinch. And then I'm gonna also measure it over the center of the apex of the short side in the center. The flow numbers, if you could see them, will show up here. That's flow. And when it gets there, which I don't know if you can see because of this, but the velocity will show up here. Let me check my camera just to make sure it is up there, and then I'll go ahead and start the test. Sorry for, I'm not a production guy, so bear with me as I do this. Yeah, you should be able to see it. I'll get out of the way when I do it as much as I can. All right, let's get this baby going. that does it for the intake. Now for the exhaust, I won't record it. That's boring. I'm flowing without exhaust. Also by the note, this is the same flow plate I'll use on both the AFR and on the Profiler. Also, this is a 430 bore that I'm flowing it on. It's also got a Champion spark plug in it, RC12YC, so it's extended tip. Anyway. Okay guys, I've got the AFR head on here now. So it's the exact same thing, same spark plug, same everything. What I'm gonna do, just like the last one with the Profiler, I will flow it, go 1/10 of an inch valve lift at a time. So see me hold up fingers, that's for each 1/10. And then I think at 1 inch, that's what I did on the last one, I'll measure the velocity at the push rod pinch and then also at the apex of the short side. In case you're wondering where do I see flow numbers, and it's recording, so if you see me even going out of the way, it's because I'm pressing record. What it'll do is whenever I press record, it takes 15 readings and then it averages those 15, and that's what it gives as the number. So if you see this flashing because it moves continuously, it doesn't pick the highest one, and it's averaging from the time I press it. So that's your flow. This is depression, which should be around 28 because the computer automatically makes the motors go to right to 28 inches. This is just the temperature. It has nothing to do with flow numbers. It just kind of gets you an idea. And then this will be where your velocity shows up whenever I get there. But anyway, let's get this thing going because I still got to get some grinding done tonight. just to show you what I did. One, this is 800 valve lift. I can't go anymore because what's happened is the retainer is touching the seal. And that's because the seals are still on it. If it wasn't, I probably could go to 1-inch valve lift like I did with the profilers. You saw the first one was the number through here, which through the pinch, it's like 380 or something. It's pretty high. The short side was about 400. What I was trying to do is try to get it with the probe at the highest one, because usually it's at the center of the apex of the short side. That's usually where you find the fastest speeds. And I was trying to find the fastest one. The fastest I think I saw it go up to was like 405 or 6, something like that. But anyway, there's that. Now I've still got to flow the exhaust, which I will do, but I just won't record it. It's too much work and takes up too much time. So anyway, after this, you should see the raw numbers between the two. So far, this one's better, most part. Okay, here are the flow results, just so you have a format where you can easily see them. This whole row here, cylinder 1, is the profiler, and cylinder 2 is the AFR. This third thing you see here is a difference. What it's doing is this shows how much better or worse cylinder 2 is, which is the AFR. So if you look at it, I'm losing track of this. I look at it, this tells you that the AFR was 2.2, let's see how much, 2.2 CFM matter, 14.2, 7, 3, almost 3. Lost there compared to the profiler. Gain 7, gain 14. Now, if you notice here at 9 and 1, I couldn't flow there because, like I said before, the valve hit the retainer, so I couldn't go any further. This is the exhaust side. Okay, so if we look at it, just going through the numbers, the AFR is pretty much better on the intake. This is the intake flow right here. Except for at 600, it's 4 CFM worse. But everywhere else, it's better. And by a considerable margin right there and there. So, all right, if we look at the exhaust though, now this one kind of different because remember, the profiler has a raised up exhaust port more than this. So, and it's also bigger. So it should outflow the AFR. But if you look, the AFR is worse there. AFR is better, considerably better, 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 and here's where it starts getting worse. So for the most part, the AFR, except for at 1 inch, a tenth of an inch valve lift, the AFR is better until it looks like 600 valve lift, then the profiler is better. So there's your numbers. Is it worth the extra money? Now, that's up to you. So it's because it's like a $600 difference. I will say this, and I'm just giving my honest opinion. If you were to put them on an engine and you ask me which one do you think will make the most horsepower and torque, it's probably going to be the AFR. Now the question is how much? Probably 20. That's about it. That's just me and my speculation, so don't take that as gospel. You believe whatever you want to believe. So that's just what I think. However, is that really worth the $600? Really, that's up to you and your pocketbook. So it's just something to think about. Now, I've got one more thing to add, and this is kind of I told you at the end of the video I had something I didn't like about one of the heads that I was going to bring up. And if you want to stop the video now because you can't deal with criticism, or you think I'm out to bash something, that just stop the video now and you won't have to hear anything more. But and if that's you, I appreciate you making it this far. Hopefully I give you a bunch of information. Just leave questions in the comment section. I'll read them all. Doesn't mean I believe with you, and that's okay. You don't have to believe with everything I say. Anyway, now I'll show you the negative about it. Yep, the criticism is actually on the profiler head. I know, not the AFR. My biggest beef with them is the valves don't seal up. This one's actually not as bad as some of the others. And I'll pull out a valve here in a second so you can see. But any profiler head you order from me, the reason why I charge more is because every single one I get, I don't even check anymore. I automatically hone the guides and then I do a valve job, which ends up making them flow better. But because I have to do that operation, I charge more than say if you got them from Summit or others. Because every single one I'm gonna do a valve job. Because when they first came out, I wouldn't say first, but maybe 2 years after, it was every single one had tight guides and every single one had a valve job that wouldn't seal. And so it wasn't like just random, it was every single one. So then I just started adding more to the price because the head was such a good head, and it still is. It's my favorite head for a small port head at all. It's the profiler, really is. But the problem is if you just get it and you think you're just going to slap them together, you better take it to a machine shop first. Just check them out because they're such a good head. It just valve job and guide honing to me wasn't that great but in the last 2 years I really have come a long way. So what I mean by that is I don't have to hone the guides. So that's the first, because it used to be you couldn't even get it to go in. And the other thing is I told you could bounce it. It should bounce. Nope, it's not still, it's tightly crooked. The other thing is I just lapped it. And this is, you can sort of see it on this side. And then you see it going almost non-existent there. And you can see it coming back around. So it's not sealed up. So I'm gonna redo the valve job anyway, but because I'm gonna port these, so the valve job's getting to a bigger valve anyway. But this is my criticism on them. But I will say, and I don't wanna sound like I'm bashing Profiler, because the head is so amazing. It is a really quality American head. It makes excellent power. It's just something to be aware of. Most people order them assembled, and I've never ordered them assembled, so I can't say on the quality of those. Maybe they just do it for the bare ones, because I've heard before from Profiler, back in the day, that they would leave the guides tight because they're like, well, we don't know what valves you're gonna run. You'll size them what you need. And then also the valve job itself, maybe they thought we were gonna cut them later on, which maybe that's how they come this way when they're bare and they figure you're gonna do it. But it's not a horrible deal. It's just something to be aware of. Most guys don't order them bare anyway. Most of you guys order them assembled, which there's a whole thing I could say about any assembled head, not just from Profiler, anybody. But anyway, it's just something to keep in mind. If you order from me, I promise you it'll have a valve job done for me and they'll be sealed up anyway. I will say when for early ones too, first came out, the seats weren't very deep. Like this is a deeper seat ring. What I mean by that ductile iron seat that they use, quality material really is. But they used to be much narrower, so it's more likely to walk. What I mean by that is when they get heated up and stuff, the seat would shift after a run, so then it would lose its seal. But now they've gone, which is way to go, Profiler. I appreciate them listening to people. The seat's much deeper, so it's got there's more force holding it in place, less likely to walk. Much better. They have come a long way. I know it seems like I'm knocking them, but they are. I'm telling you, if you buy these heads, and you buy them hopefully from someone you trust, you're going to make a lot of power. So something to think about. Really good head. Just wanted to throw out some information. Please don't think I'm bashing them, because like what I say, this head is an amazing head, worth the amount of money you spend on it. Like it was so close to the AFRs anyway, and it's $600 cheaper. Really good head. And I promise you too, from porting, these heads respond to porting fantastically. So worth the money altogether. Even if you're like, I'm just got a small engine now, like a 383, but I'm gonna step up to like a 400 later on, these could be ported to a bigger size and work great. So a lot of room to grow with them, quality head. So hopefully that told you everything you probably didn't need to know about this, and it's a long video, but I want to go over everything. Remember, this is just my opinion. You're welcome to your own. I just try to give as much information as possible. You make your own decisions.